I'm Jane Reardon at the Illinois Supreme Court Commission on Professionalism. Welcome to Reimagining Law. In this series, we explore with legal professionals how they're changing up the delivery of services to better meet the needs of today's consumers. Today, I have with me Randy Curato from the Attorneys Liability Assurance Society, ALAS. Welcome to the show, Randy.
Thanks, Jane. Glad to be with you.
Great. From a risk management perspective, what challenges have lawyers faced working from home and advising clients during this global pandemic?
Well, Jane, risk management is not always at the top of a lawyer's mind generally as they move through their busy days, right? So it's always challenging. Most of the risk during this work from home cycle is really enhanced versions of risks that are already present in our practices. First, cybersecurity is the big one. With lawyers accessing client information remotely and working on different platforms and devices under different circumstances, it really opens the door to missteps that could jeopardize confidentiality. Leaving laptops on and paper in plain view, having calls when others are in hearing range or your digital assistant like Alexa is on, tossing printed materials in the general trash without shredding them, just to name a few. And second, lawyers have been barraged with questions on issues that they've not encountered before. Should the client apply for one of these government loans? Can the client stay open or reopen their business if the state edict directs them not to? And is there a risk of future suits if they do? You know, it's tempting in an effort to help the client. I think lawyers are wired to be helpful. It's tempting to weigh in on those questions off the top of your head, even if it's not in your area of expertise or experience.
Yeah, we're in uncharted territories, that's for sure. During this time, have any positive practices emerged?
Well, I think there is a lot of good news for sure. A couple things. Law firms and lawyers, I think, have stepped up their IT systems and their cybersecurity. They've added or they're focusing more closely on data security measures. Like I've heard a lot of addition of multi-factor authentication to access the firm's network and data, and carefully evaluating video platforms for communicating. They want to make sure that they have a secure network to talk to their clients and to each other. Beyond that, I think we've all benefited from having a bit more time to concentrate on what we're doing, right? We have a little bit more time on our hands, and so we're spending more time to make sure that that happens. And hopefully, lawyers are following up with better and increased communications. You know, Jane, one of the more practical things I've heard from firms that, big news, more lawyers are getting their timesheets in on time. That's a great thing for most law firms. I hope one of the corollaries of that will be that the entries are actually better than they normally would be, being fulsome and more descriptive than they normally are. But I think the biggest positive is this. I think we all recognize that lawyers are generally resistant to change. It's hard, right? But this situation really forced our hand and changed the way we work in many respects. So I think what we learned is we can change and we can do it without too much disruption or effort. And perhaps we'll all be more open to change that's ultimately going to come when we get back in the office. And then relatedly on change, many lawyers have successfully pivoted to serve their clients' current needs, obviously enhancing their client service.
So lawyers are facing yet another transition, rather. How should lawyers be counseling their clients about bringing employees back into the office and moving back into the office themselves?
Well, on the client side, lawyers really need to have to really resist dabbling because even if they get called from their regular client, which is most likely going to happen, they may not be the right person to give the advice. So on the client side, basically get your clients to the right lawyers. Send them to your employment or labor lawyer on the return to work requirements under law and the regulatory lawyers on some of the government directives. On the firm side, firms really need to rely on their own labor lawyer and their HR professionals to determine what, if any, restrictions or precautions will be necessary. And it really needs to be guided by management. You know, we find that in all risk management, leadership is critical to leading it and for smooth transitions.
So do you have any specific advice how lawyers can mitigate risk as they transition back to offices?
Well, returning to work for some of us will be a welcome development. I know it will be for me, but it will be yet another change. And so, again, we're going to have to make adjustments back to what we think was normal, and it's going to be even different, I think. So we need to be cautious. So I think what we're going to find is many lawyers are going to be hungry for new clients and new work, and they want to get right at it. But lawyers need to be cautious on several fronts. First, don't rush the process. It'll be important to continue to evaluate client quality on new clients and check on conflicts. Can't skip those steps. And as part of that, we need lawyers to keep an eye out for new clients and even existing clients who now might be financially stressed, who might be engaging in risky activities, or even worse. Second, don't accept matters that are outside your area of expertise. That means no hoarding of your own client work. If it's your client, you got to hand it off to the right person, and then make sure there's no dabbling. So if you're not a bankruptcy lawyer and your client is asking whether it should file bankruptcy after the devastating effects of the pandemic, call in the bankruptcy experts. And don't give off the cuff advice on these issues or any of the issues, frankly. Make sure you have all the information, documents, and facts you need before giving any advice, and then confirm it in writing. And third, I think it's going to be hard for us to get over the fact that we can't get used to or rely upon extensions that court have graciously granted during the work from home cycle. That we're going to get back to normal for sure. And we don't want to be missing deadlines. They're from a risk management standpoint, a blown deadline is very difficult to defend. So first things first, get your deadlines on your calendar, confirm they're correct, and work to beat the deadline. It's always a good idea to file the day before the deadline to account for any technology snafus or other delays.
Yeah, that's a really good point. A lot of e-filing and people doing things remotely, that will be hopefully a new normal to stay on top of things. Absolutely. What changes, Randy, do you hope persist after we're through this COVID-19 crisis?
Well, I think we can follow up on the changes we've implemented. Hey, let's keep using these new skills that we've developed. While in-person communication is often the best way to connect, we've seen that some things can be done efficiently online. But again, as with communication, we need to follow up with appropriate confirming emails and other documentation to our clients and opposing counsel. And I'm guessing that some lawyers have actually communicated more with their own colleagues than they typically do, just as a method of keeping connected. That's a great habit to continue because it will improve collaboration. And what's that going to result in? Better work product and better client service. And I think finally, one thing that we should focus on is that everyone has learned that, guess what? We can adapt. A lot of people may think lawyers can't adapt, but this has really demonstrated we can. So what I'd like us to see is let's be brave and move forward and embrace what's ahead, whatever that might be when we get back in the office.
From your lips to God's ears. Thanks for joining me, Randy. Really appreciate it. And folks, please like and share this video and subscribe to our channel. Information about connecting with us is in the notes below. Thanks for joining and see you next time.